Together we are about to embark on a journey through the polar ice to the very top of the world. Just why on earth anyone would want to do that is a fair question, which we will attempt to answer along the way. The point of departure was Murmansk, the most northerly city in the world, but one which, due to the remnants of the Gulf Stream, remains ice-free throughout the rigid Arctic winter, despite being at the same latitude as the north coast of Alaska. Our route to the North Pole takes us between the island groups of Svalbard and Franz Josef Land and runs north, always north. Today, Murmansk is sadly down at heel, but during the dark days of World War II, it was the destination for vital supplies carried by the year-round brutal Arctic convoys. An imposing memorial to those who gave their lives to this endeavour takes the form of a towering statue overlooking the harbour. Photography was not allowed in the docks, so a distant glimpse of red, and this photograph of her at the pole, will be the introduction to the star of our expedition. She is the Yamal, whose name appropriately means the end of the earth, and it is her unique qualities that make our amazing journey possible. The undocking of any ship is always accompanied by an air of excitement and anticipation of what lies ahead. In this case, it was greatly increased due to the nature of the ship itself and our remote and unreal destination, and further enhanced by the playing of stirring patriotic music over the PA system. Yamal is a nuclear-powered icebreaker and was completed in 1992. She is the youngest of the Arctica class of icebreakers, of which another example is seen here. Murmansk is on the Kola Inlet, 20 miles from the Barents Sea, and as the Yamal draws 36 feet, navigation down the inlet means waiting for high tide and requires careful piloting. Here, the harbour pilot comes aboard. Yamal is a working icebreaker during the winter months, but between July and September she makes regular runs taking tourists to the North Pole. That she can reach the pole is never in question, but even for Yamal there is no absolute guarantee that she can always do so in time to maintain the schedule. The pilot leaves the ship close to the mouth of the inlet, and with his departure Yamal severs her last ties with the land. We encountered fog as we approached the first of the ice. Despite having radar, regulations requires the presence of a lookout on the bow. Although in trivial amounts compared to what lay ahead, the first sight of floating ice is always exciting. It wasn't long before occasional chunks escalated into almost total coverage, but it was still weak and was pushed aside with contemptuous ease. The bridge is open 24 hours a day and provides a fascinating opportunity to observe the navigation of a unique ship for days at a time through solid ice. Specialized charts based on data from satellites are downloaded from the internet, but this was Yamel's first trip in the 2005 season, and even in July the ice sheet can still be solid with its condition as yet unverified by actual observation. It is a requirement on any ship that a lifeboat drill be held within 24 hours of leaving port. In our case, this was preceded by a briefing from Laurie, the expedition leader, followed by a demonstration of the use of survival suits.
Somebody asked the other day about life jackets. Now there are some life jackets on the ship, but we don't use those. Those are not normally used. What we use are these hydro suits, and we're going to have a demonstration of that in just a minute. So when you look in your cabins, you won't find things like that. There are special storage areas at the lifeboat mustering stations. You'll find out more about that shortly. And when you go to the station, you will be given one of these, and there will be people there, crew members there, who will assist you if you require assistance to get into them. I've only tried it once, so I needed assistance. So I think we have somebody who's going to demonstrate the use of this just now.
How to put it on. So you may be dressed in your ordinary clothing, and then to put on this suit.
Center stage.
So of course crew members will be helping you to put on this hydro suit.
Чтобы надуть подушку за спиной, необходимо нажать эту штучку. Push.
Following the briefing, we made our way on deck for the lifeboat drill.
Very effective.
The ice gradually began to thicken up with occasional leads and open areas called polinyas. We soon learned to become accustomed to the continuous rumble and vibration that accompanies life aboard a working icebreaker. On a ship, the surrounding environment is normally always moving, and it was quite strange to be progressing through what appeared to be solid surroundings. Yamal can maintain a speed of 3 knots through ice 8 feet thick, so ice of a lesser thickness was of little consequence to her progress. I make no apologies for dwelling on the breaking of ice. It is, after all, fundamental to making this amazing journey, and is, in reality, endlessly fascinating to watch.
We have seen polar bears, or we've seen a polar bear once, just a few miles from the North Pole itself. I've also seen polar bear tracks very close to the North Pole on another occasion. So while we want to see them, we also don't want them to get too interested in us.
Far out on the ice, and hundreds of miles from the nearest land, we came across the first of several polar bears we encountered on the trip. This mother, with a cub about 6 months old, had probably given birth to twins, but these bears live close to the edge of survival, and hunting has to be good to be able to nurture 2 cubs. Polar bears are the undisputed top predator in the Arctic, and they fear nothing. These bears have almost certainly never seen a human or a ship, and to them we merely represent a potential meal. Their normal diet is seals, and the bears need to be out on the ice in order to hunt them. Their very survival is being threatened in areas where global warming is already resulting in early thawing and late freezing of the sea ice. Despite our presence, this mother evidently felt sufficiently relaxed to suckle her cub. Their skin is black beneath the fur, and polar bears have been seen holding either a paw or even a piece of ice in front of their noses to disguise their appearance while stalking their prey. Their sense of smell is so acute that they can detect the scent of a seal below the ice 1 kilometer away. Yamal has triple screws, and these are one of the 3 sets of levers used to control the power and rotation of the propellers. An icebreaker does not merely plough heedlessly ahead, but has to be navigated continuously by her crew as they pick their way through the path of least resistance while maintaining a general course in the desired direction. Barbecues are always a regular and welcome feature on expedition cruises, and we bundled up to enjoy the first of these on deck. Everyone, including one of the Russian waitresses in particular, obviously enjoyed themselves while the ship was parked in the endless expanse of ice. We soon encountered a second polar bear with cub, who were not quite sure what to make of us. Perhaps one way to spot bears is to look out for the birds which escort them, in the hope of benefiting from these top predators. Ah, that feels so good. The booming noise of the hull against the ice caused some alarm as we got underway. The pack was now thick enough to become an issue, as cracks split open and then closed again, while the ship forced aside sheets of ice the size of football fields. Perhaps this would be a good time to describe some of the technical aspects of this amazing vessel. The energy from 2 nuclear reactors heats water to produce steam for the turbines, generating the electrical energy for the motors which drive the propellers. Power on each of 3 shafts is 25,000 horsepower, for a total of 75,000. She is the most powerful ship for her size in the world. This is a photo taken while on a scheduled engine room tour, during which we were shown the reactors and the control room. The propellers are 19 feet in diameter, weigh 50 tons apiece, and have 4 individual blades which can be replaced at sea. Spare blades are stored on deck. They can handle immense blocks of ice which are spat out behind the ship. Yamal is 500 feet long and 100 feet wide and draws 36 feet. She has a displacement of 23,500 tons and a top speed of 22 knots. Ice 8 feet thick can be broken while maintaining a speed of 3 knots. Her normal ice limit is estimated at 16 feet, but pressure ridges of up to 30 feet have been broken through. Maximum daily fuel use while breaking heavy ice is 300 grams of uranium, having the physical dimensions of about 4 squares of chocolate. If diesel powered, the equivalent daily fuel requirement would be 160 tons, or 52,000 gallons, which would obviously limit operating range. Yamal has a range of approximately 4 years. Air jets from the bubbling system exit the hull 30 feet below the water at 3 places along each side of the ship, and they can deliver enormous quantities of air to aid in ice breaking.
Гей! Обзвони этих демонов в столовой там и везде, чтобы ничего не выкинули. Лево набор! Лево набор! Прямо руль!
We now encountered the first ice thick enough and tough enough to bring Yamal to a halt. When this happens, an icebreaker backs up and rams the ice for as many times as necessary until she breaks through. Ice that has survived for more than 1 year is called multi-year ice, and it becomes increasingly tough the longer it survives. It turns blue in color as the air is squeezed out of it. The monitor in the lobby showed that we had barely reached 84 degrees north, having started at 69, and being brought to a halt while still so far from the pole gave rise to the first niggling doubts as to whether we would be able to reach it before having to turn back in order for Yamal to maintain her unforgiving schedule. The next few minutes will dramatically illustrate the forces involved in breaking ice of this thickness, and of the immense power required to overcome them. You have only to think of the effort required to push aside just one of these blocks of ice, let alone the forces required to break them in the But we were brought to a standstill once again and reduced our average speed still further. Some of us began to mentally prepare ourselves for the idea that maybe it would be all right to sacrifice calling at Franz Josef Land on the way back, just so long as we could reach our goal of 90 degrees north. Perhaps it was time to invite King Neptune on board, to ask his permission to enter his Arctic realm, and to obtain the key to unlock the barriers that stood in our way.
I am on board this ship.
Я вижу здесь людей.
People from different countries of the world.
Мне интересно знать, кто этот отважный человек.
And I'd like to know who is this brave man.
Кто же ваш капитан?
Who is your captain? Tell me, please.
Хочу взглянуть на него.
I'd like to have a look at him. So, is this our captain? I'd like to see captain. So, this is our captain.
Добрый день, добрый вечер.
Good evening, dear ladies and gentlemen.
Я прошу Нептуна, царя морей, не чинить препятствия нашему ледоколу и этим пассажирам, так как они с добрыми намерениями.
I'll ask him to be not so severe, to be kind to us, and let us go further on our direction to the northern pole.
Так как здесь все находятся с добрыми намерениями, и хорошо бы Нептун нам дал легкого льда, чтобы поменьше трясло вас и наш ледокол.
All of us have such a beautiful, not so cold. Let us ask him also about it.
И вручаю ему ключ от
And
Арктики.
I awarding him with this very, very important key. This is a key from Arctic. Is this captain is an experienced one? He's high qualified specialist, yeah? Yeah. No, then Paul, it's great. Thank you very much, dear Mr. Captain. Oh, it's you. Is it him or not?
Yes.
Yeah, it is him.
Этот белые
Tell me,
медведи.
please, do you sleep like polar bears into the snow or maybe into the comfortable cabins? Into the cabins?
Вы питаетесь как планктоном, как полярные киты, или вкусными обедами?
And what about your meal? Do you eat like real tourists? Very delicious European dishes? Yes. Yes.
To go to the pole is cheap at any price.
There is the strongest man or maybe woman. Let us find him or her. Maybe this person will be the strongest one. Let us see. People is the strongest one. That group of people which is on starboard side, or that group of people which is on port side, or maybe starboard side. Devils, mermaids, try to help our tourists to do it. Right. Once again. Right. Good. Who is the strongest? Starboard side or port side?
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to work, cause my boss is a jerk, and I'm not even that paid. I need a change in my life, cause I don't feel alive, and there's nothing that makes me happy. Hold my beer for a minute. I'm about to quit my job, cash in for a ticket. I'm going on a trip and I don't plan to visit. I'm gonna stay there till I feel like I'm winning. Oh, and this is just the beginning. I need a big change, help me feel like living. I need a big swing, home runs I'm hitting, and I'll never look back, moving on till I get it all. And we all got dreams, we all want things, but what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be? And do you believe you can do anything? But what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be?
It seemed that Neptune's key did not fit the lock, and within a few hours we were at a standstill once again. This time stopped by a pressure ridge reported at nearly 30 feet thick. There was now really serious concern being expressed about our timetable, and the helicopter was made ready to reconnoitre a route through the remaining distance. While it was away, the ship continued to back up and ram the obstinate ridge, without success. Gradually we began to gain confidence that we were going to make it in time, even though our average speed was down to 2 knots. The monitor in the lobby showed our next waypoint to be the pole itself, 90 degrees. Our course appeared to be very erratic, but this was because the lines of longitude were now so close together that a deviation of only a few hundred yards would be greatly exaggerated on the plot.
I saw quite a few of you around the GPS a minute ago, and you noticed we're actually getting slightly further away from the pole at the moment. We're heading east because they were heading straight to the pole, hit some really heavy pressure ice, realized they weren't going to get through it, followed the easy way. But we're just this second, just before they're coming down here, I checked one more time. We're beginning to make the turn again. We've been about 14 miles away for some time now, and we're about 13 miles at the moment. So, all being well, we should be there in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. But we don't know. Now, once we do get there, we will invite everybody to come to the bridge. We will have champagne ready. You're not allowed to touch a drop to your lips until we get there. You may do so. And we'll also have some little hors d'oeuvres and things like that ready. And then you're welcome to fill the whole of the bridge, but the captain will not be using the GPS that is the big green one that is that you can see so easily. He has a little television screen up above the steering controls on the extreme left-hand side, and he'll be watching that. So while you're free to go everywhere, give him room, give him space. And also, even though it's very exciting, please still keep your voices down. And I know with everybody up there it's difficult, and if we find it's getting too noisy, forgive me if I get on the PA system and tell everybody, please just keep a little bit quiet, because he still has to be able to communicate with his officers, with the helmsman and so on. He will attempt to get directly to 90 degrees. Now, it could be a tiny bit off because we have 3 GPS positions on the ship, and the one that green screen is using is in the center of the ship, which is not where the bridge is. So we're pretty confident we can get the ship directly at 90.00, but it may or may not read that up there, but it will be within the confines of the ship, depending on which GPS he's using. And then once we're there, we'll have a toast. The captain will propose a toast, and you can spend some time up there, take photographs with the GPS position and so on. And then as soon as we can, we will start the next stage of the process, which is to get onto the ice. I say a process because it may not be as simple as just getting off the ship at that point. During the last 4 or 5 miles, as we approach the pole, they're looking for large pans of strong ice, because occasionally the North Pole itself can be just brash ice or open water. And so if we're lucky, we'll be able to stop at the pole and that's it. But he may need to move in order to park the ship into some stronger ice.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to congratulate you. We have, as you know, different GPSs on the ship, and the one that most of the passengers are looking at is in the center of the ship, and it reached exactly 90 degrees 00. So the North Pole is underneath the ship at the moment.
My GPS would not read below decks, and by the time I'd figured out where on the ship to go, we had moved, and this was the closest reading I was able to record.
No, we've got a few more minutes to go, mate. You're cheating.
Mulled wine was served on the foredeck, while preparations were made for a barbecue on the ice. Among the first ashore were the 3 armed guards, deputized to keep us safe from polar bears who might consider us part of the barbecue. You can only tell when you have reached the top of the world by looking at the GPS, and of course in this crystal desert the pole just looks identical to everywhere else for 1,000 miles. But this imaginary spot has some strange ephemeral characteristics. For example, if you continue north in a straight line towards the pole and you fail to stop when you get there, you will find yourself traveling south, even though you have not changed direction. In fact, no matter which direction you set out from the pole, you will always be traveling south. The sun circles around almost parallel to the horizon, higher or lower according to the season, until September, when it goes below the horizon and remains there for 6 months, so there is only 1 day and 1 night per year. At the poles, all the lines of longitude come together in a single point, so to travel around the world and pass from yesterday into tomorrow and back again takes but a moment. Among the passengers was a lady who celebrated her 90th birthday at 90 degrees north, and she went around the world 3 times in under 1 minute, just to be sure she got the date right. The whole ice pack moves at 4 miles per day, which equates to 300 yards per hour or 5 yards per minute. During the time we were there chewing on our barbecue, we had drifted at least 1 mile away from the pole.
Yeah, oh, that's good.
They're gonna win you a new motorcycle?
It might.
Here we can see the teeth painted on the bow. The paint has suffered, but the special polymer coatings are intact. A number of hardy individuals went swimming in the freezing water, which at the pole is over 13,000 feet deep. The air temperature hovered around freezing and never got much colder than that during the entire trip.
You gonna jump? Oh, yes. Okay, here we go.
The return journey south was comparatively smooth sailing, because Yamal was able to follow the path she had cut through the ice on her northbound track. This view of the lobby monitor shows our northbound track in white and our southbound in red. Although the two tracks are parallel, the red does not overlay the white, which illustrates how much the ice has moved over the surface of the Earth during the intervening time. The monitor also shows that at 89 degrees we are still quite close to the pole, and the east-west deviations are exaggerated due to the closeness of the lines of longitude. It shows our speed to be a brisk 10.4 knots. With the weather so fine, it was time for our much anticipated helicopter sightseeing flight around the ship.
So if we have an opportunity for flying, we jump on it any time of day or night. In other words, if we get clear weather, we will use it. You might think at times that that's a little bit extreme if we get you up too early or we start something late at night, but it's possible if we do not do that, that we simply don't get any flying time. We will try to get everybody on 2 or 3 flights up and around the ship to watch it actually in action as it breaks the ice, and you'll be able to hover near the bow and see it crashing through. You'll be able to go up high and get a see of the whole of the ice field and the ship, tiny little dot working its way through it, and also using the helicopters to make landings. And we have a system that we use where we'll give you all in number, and we will call you to the helicopters by number. In other words, you will not always be with exactly the same people, because sometimes we will only have 12 people in the helicopter. If we're doing just a flight, a sightseeing flight, there are 6 sort of windows on each side, so we limit it to 12, so you have more opportunity to take photographs. If we're doing a landing, we'll put you in 20 at a time. You line up close to the helicopter deck, but not where you are exposed to it. Again, we will help you with that to keep you just a little bit back. Just in case anything happens on that deck, you don't want to be anywhere near flying steel or anything that's moving around. And we're not talking here about accidents. You know, there's a tremendous downdraft from the Mi-8 helicopter. And if there's anything at all accidentally left on the deck, it can pick it up and throw it like a bullet across the deck. So we keep you at a safe distance. Same on shore. When we land on shore, we will have a designated landing spot and a designated assembly point. And the assembly point will be quite some distance from the helicopter. We will always have a staff person at the door, and we'll have a staff person at the assembly point, and we will be communicating, and you just wait for our signal to move forward to the helicopters and to come back. But when we do our landings, then you really need to dress well, because you'll be out of the helicopter for 1 or 2 hours on the land and totally exposed. We suggest that if we're going to land, that you make sure you do put on sunscreen, because even if it is a little bit overcast, it's surprisingly high radiation levels at this latitude, and especially as you are surrounded by either water or ice, and which deflects the radiation.
With only 12 passengers per flight, this involved 8 flights, and the ship stopped between each one. That evening the corridors were deserted, while everyone took advantage of the special cocktail evening at the bar.
I still think you ought to buy that big beer.
Food and service aboard the ship were first class. We deviated from our northbound track as we turned east towards Franz Josef Land, and Yamal had to return to icebreaking once more. But we were now sufficiently far south that although the ice was still blue, multi-year type, it lacked the strength of the ice we had encountered further north. We encountered another bear, but this one wanted nothing to do with us and stayed well away from the ship.
And just to let you know that Jason has been seeing quite a few bearded seals up on the bridge and some ringed seals as well scattered around. So we're getting into an area of wildlife. So after you've finished your dinner, it's worth coming up and going out on deck and seeing what you can spot.
The ice became progressively weaker and took on a lacy appearance as we drew closer to the southern fringe of the pack. Franz Josef Land was discovered in 1873 and is an archipelago of 191 islands spread out over 8,000 square miles.
Buy this and see what positions are like.
Our first view of land in almost 2 weeks was bleak and forbidding. Although the ice presented no challenge to Yamal, it precluded the use of the Zodiacs for making a landing, and the cloud cover was marginal for helicopters. Finally, a decision was reached to make a helicopter landing on Champa Island. Here, the main points of interest were the perfectly spherical boulders and the startling mosses, lichens and wildflowers, so unexpected in this bleak and apparently barren place. The boulders were formed in a layer of buried sand many millions of years ago, when the area was a desert. This was followed by glaciation, and then much later, with the melting of the glaciers, the land began to rise, and the boulders were revealed as the meltwater washed away the topsoil. Our next stop was at Rubini Rock, where millions of seabirds used the deformed basaltic columns as nesting sites. At Tikaya Bay on nearby Hooker Island is an abandoned Soviet weather station, which was our next stop. Even in high summer this was a bleak place, although hardy wildflowers are doing their best among the litter. One can only imagine what it must be like living here during the winter. The resident staff were cut off and marooned here from 1941 until 1945 during World War II. It is hard to believe, but the Graf Zeppelin airship called here in 1931. A proposed landing at Flora Point had to be abandoned due to the weather, and the time had come to leave the ice behind and head back to Murmansk. The seas and wind were greater than on our outward journey, but they were on the bow and caused us no discomfort. It was in these waters that the Russian nuclear submarine Kursk had tragically sunk in August 2000 with the loss of all on board. She had been based out of Murmansk. Although the coast of Siberia still lay over the horizon, increasing numbers of birds told us that we were not far from land. The notch in the landmass marked the entrance to the Kola Inlet. To starboard of it is the Kola Peninsula, where the deepest borehole ever drilled in the Earth's mantle is to be found. It is more than 40,000 feet deep, and rocks 2.7 billion years old have been found at its base. Its purpose was purely scientific research. We had celebrated the 4th of July on the way north, and now, as we entered the Kola Inlet, we celebrated Bastille Day, July the 14th, for the benefit of the large group of French passengers. It was our last dinner together on board, so it was a bittersweet affair, with the sweet part provided by baked Alaska. The pilot was back on board, and it was close to midnight when Yamal was greeted by her escort of powerful tugs. We would leave the ship at 8 the following morning, and she would be leaving for her next trip to the North Pole at 4 that same afternoon. She had kept to her schedule. Our amazing journey was over, and we were back where it had started just 12 days earlier. Why did I go? Just for the experience. And the memories will stay with me for the rest of my life.